welcome back to the Mindset Matters podcast. Today, I wanted to dive into something that I've been thinking a lot about recently. I just finished up undergraduate at Biola University, and I just finished playing college ball. So right now, I'm at a little bit of a in between. And in that space, I found myself kind of worried about the future, thinking about the entire journey will no doubt bring some anxiety, fear, whatever it may be. It's going to bring up some emotions. And I had to continually remind myself, get back to today, get back to today. Think about today, focus on today, give your all to today. Eventually stack up enough todays, you'll get to where you want to go. But obviously that's easier said than done, so I wanted to talk about the framework that I've been using and learning and thinking a lot about recently. And the inspiration is showing up in a variety of ways, and it's all connecting. All the dots are connecting, which I think is pretty cool. And I also think that means that there's not only truth and validity to the ideas, but also that it's meant to be. So to start off, I want to talk about a little story that one of my English professors at Biola told me, and she's helping me write a paper. It was this big, I want to say 15-page paper that was due at the end of one of the semesters. I remember me telling her that the hardest part about this essay was starting. And she told me this story from one of her favorite books. And the book is called Bird by Anne Lamott. And in this book, the author talks about this story from when she was younger, and her little brother is struggling with this project. Her little brother had 3 months to do this project, procrastinated until the very night before it was due. So he came stressed out to his dad like, hey, I got this project due. I had 3 months to do it, but I haven't even started it. Now I got 3 months of work to do in one night. It's due tomorrow. What can we do? And it's this project about birds. And the dad calmly said to his kid, hey bud, don't even worry about it. We're going to figure this out together, and we're going to go bird by bird, one at a time, until it's done. So my professor is telling me hey, get your paper done bird by bird, do what you can, show up and do what you can. Now, I was recently reminded of this when I was listening to one of my favorite sports psych minds, Sid Drake. Shout out to him. But he was talking about this very book. And the way he brought it up was completely going down this different avenue, but I thought it was so relevant to what I'm going through. Sure, right now it's not about essays. It's not even about baseball. It's about life. And when I started thinking about this concept more and more, bird by bird, applying it to all the little intricacies of my life, the more and more I started to realize hey, this is really all in my head. This stress, this anxiety is all in my head. It really doesn't need to be that deep. Take every single little thing bird by bird, and soon enough you're going to get your projects done. But thinking more about this in a broad, general sense of terms, what it really comes down to is becoming. Wanting to become something, wanting to become more than you are right now, wanting to change a little bit about yourself maybe. Whether that be altering the course of your life 180 degrees or, just a little pivot. But the main way this is all starting to show up for me is when I make the time to sit down and read this book called The Artist's Way. And one of the quotes that I was reading that really stood out to me truly illustrates and captures exactly kind of what I've been thinking about, what I've been going through, and what I've been trying to apply to my life. And it says this: and of course, the fledgling artist does not know. There is just this dream, this feeling, this urge, this desire. There is seldom any real proof, but the dream lives on. And even in just these couple sentences, there's so much to unpack. There's so many ideas. The fledgling artist, what does that mean? And then you've got the dream, the feeling, the urge, yet there's no proof of it yet. So this is the beginning stages of who you're trying to become, the beginning of becoming. It's almost like there's stages to becoming. And on the topic of the fact that there is no proof, of course not. How could there be any proof? There's simply just an idea, an ideal version of yourself that you are not currently, but you very well could be on your way to becoming. How could there be any proof of it? You haven't done it yet. It's just in your mind. And thinking on this topic of how there's stages to becoming, the early stages are the most intimidating. Why are the early stages intimidating? You're trying to think of ways to act on an identity that is not yet there. When you're at the beginning of the road and you're trying to imagine what the end of the road looks like, it's scary. It's literally the unknown. You have no idea what could happen from point A to point B. Of course, that's intimidating. If you've ever seen The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, I think about like Frodo or Bilbo Baggins, who is so comfortable in their nice little life in the Shire. And they have a great house, they have a bunch of money, they have a bunch of food. They're so comfortable. They know everybody. Yet they go on this great journey into the unknown. And of course, their first reaction is like, oh no. Like, of course, it's exciting because it's change, but then you realize it's change. And the excitement quickly turns into all the what ifs, all of the anxiety of the unknown because you haven't stepped foot in it yet. Of course, that's nerve-wracking. But another challenge of the early stages of becoming are the fact that there's no momentum yet. The ball isn't rolling yet. Just like starting that essay was the hardest part for me, I'm sure many of you can relate to that changing course of your life and heading in one direction and trying to make a new habit, trying to set a new goal. That's why New Year's resolutions barely even stick, because starting is hard. Starting momentum is hard, and then keeping it in the beginning stages is hard. But there's 3 concepts that I've begun to realize, and I want to share with you guys that there is an importance in these beginning stages. And the first is giving grace to yourself. Adopting a beginner's mindset is going to be nothing but beneficial and great for you, and honestly necessary for you at the beginning of something. And even when you're a professional, it's great to have a beginner's mindset, and we'll talk about that in a bit. The second is having a support system, an accountability system, because a good community enables the nurturing that is necessary to grow. And this goes hand in hand with the fledgling artist that the quote from The Artist's Way was talking about, but we'll talk about it in a second. And the third is showing up, having the audacity to show up, and we'll talk about that in the last part of this episode. So if you look up a beginner's mindset, it'll say approaching life with openness, eagerness, and a lack of preconceptions. In other words, a lack of expectations. No expectations. Let it happen. When you let it happen, you can trust that whatever is meant to be will be. Then all you have to do is show up and let it happen. You get into this rhythm of reminding yourself like, okay, I just gotta show up step by step. I'm gonna figure it out as I go along. I don't need to have it all figured out right now. Professionals never started out as professionals. Continue to let yourself be a beginner for as long as it takes. Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way explains this beautifully. She says, there will be many times when we won't look good to ourselves or to anyone else, but we need to stop demanding that we do. Again, no expectations. It is impossible to get better and look good at the same time. Remember that in order to be an artist, you must be willing to be a bad artist. I love that. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. By being willing to be a bad artist, you have a chance to be an artist. And perhaps over time, a very good one. By being willing to be a bad artist, you're taking out the expectations. You're cutting out the perfectionism that I deal with tremendously. I'm sure many of you watching deal with perfectionism as well, but you might know that perfectionism is the very thing that's keeping you from starting. That's keeping you from becoming. So giving yourself permission to be a beginner, to be a bad artist, actually allows you to be an artist and practice and work on it and go through the inner workings of becoming, which isn't always clean. Matter of fact, more often than not, it's messy. Give yourself the opportunity to be messy. But get this, she also says, when I make this point in teaching, I am met by an instant defensive hostility from her students. They say, but do you know how old I will be when I finally learn to play the piano or act or write or paint for you athletes, your sport, whatever it is? Yes, the same age you will be if you don't. So let's start. What a concept. This brings me back to, episodes ago where I talked about how the process of becoming something isn't glamorous. And that's taken from Atomic Habits by James Clear. The process isn't glamorous. Like I said, it's messy. It's ugly. Oftentimes it's It's not cool or attractive or clean. Like I said, it's messy and it's sloppy. It's all over the place. It might go great sometimes. Great. It might go terribly. Let it. When we're able to drop our ego and our expectations and our pride, that's when we allow ourselves to show up holistically, wholeheartedly, genuinely, as we are each and every day that we show up. We can't expect ourselves to be perfect on something that you're barely practicing, even if you are a professional. I think that it's so easy to imagine someone out there that's doing everything perfect and has it all figured out. Then if you're anything like me, I subconsciously compare and expect myself to meet that mark and have it all figured out and do everything, seamlessly. What kind of far-fetched expectation is something like that you're putting on yourself? Especially if you're trying out something. Like, that's self-destructive. Like, what good does that do? Comparing yourself to an imaginary version of yourself that has it all figured out. You're just hurting the child inside of you that wants to practice and be better and show up and have fun and, learn. Because that's really all the process is. It's learning. It's showing up, allowing yourself to show up without, judgment of yourself and not caring about the judgment of others, and just letting yourself be creative, be, present. I think another concept that is so hard to wrap your head around, but once we get it and practice understanding that, the more we can realize that it's a never-ending journey of tweaks and improvements and setbacks, then the more we can allow ourselves to just show up. Because after every setback, there's a comeback. After every, the time we take to understand, what happened here? Why did this fail here? Then we can adjust and move forward. And it's a never-ending journey of those failures, the adjustments, and the improvements. So one of my favorite TV shows, Ted Lasso. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it, especially if you're in the sports psychology field or you're interested in this stuff, if you're an athlete, if you're trying to be creative, if you're trying to become, like this episode is talking about, watch this show. And in one of the episodes, one of the scenes, Ted Lasso, the main character, is talking about his childhood, and he grows up noticing that all the people that ever were judgmental or hated on him, or hated on anyone for that matter, they were judgmental because they themselves were judgmental of themselves. That was like the wiring of their brain, was to think judgmentally. And he says, Ted Lasso says, be curious, not judgmental. Ask questions. Be curious, not judgmental. Don't be so quick to put a label on something. Don't be so quick to allow the inner critic in your head be so overly critical of yourself, especially when you're trying something new, when you're trying to learn and practice and everything we're talking about. Be curious, not judgmental. And in The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron talks about this. She talks about how you're an observer, not a judge. And in the book, early on in the book, one of the tools, one of the practices she talks about is the morning pages. And to put it simply, it's journaling, but it's free-flowing, allowing yourself to write whatever comes to mind nonstop. You're training your subconscious mind, the part of you that is so quick to be, critical, self-doubting, judgmental, all of that. It trains you to realize you're simply an observer and not a judge. It helps you learn to be curious, not judgmental, which is an important asset when you're trying to become. It trains you to realize that you're simply an observer along for the ride. You're noticing without any judgment attached to it. So moving on to community and being able to be nurtured. Your tribe influences your direction. There's no doubt about it. That's your environment. Give me your 5 friends, I'll show you who you're going to be, type of thing. But not only that, your tribe also influences your subconscious. If you have overly critical people in your circle, you're going to think overcritically. That's where we're kind of trying to get away from, because the overcritical mind is going to hinder the state of becoming. It's going to enact a positive feedback loop that is negatively hindering the cycle that you're trying to break free from. We're going to get into Audacity in the next section, but if you're stuck in that positive feedback loop, you're only going to stay there. You're never going to move forward. It's going to keep you from change. It's going to keep you from growth. It's going to keep you from becoming. If you're always overly critical of yourself, if you're always judgmental of yourself, you're the very thing that's going to beat down the child inside of you that wants to break free and try things and learn and be a beginner. So the importance of your community, the tribe, the people that you have around you, they have the ability to nurture or destroy the stages of becoming. And the beginning of the stages are the most susceptible to this influence. The beginning is the most easily influenced part, no doubt about it. And there's a reason that in the artist's way, like I said in the quote before, there's the fledgling artist. It's referred to as a fledgling artist. Like, what is that? I looked it up, so you don't have to, but it's symbolic of a fledgling bird. A fledgling is a young bird that has grown its feathers and it's left the nest, but it's still learning to fly. In bird development, there's the hatchling, there's the nestling, and then there's the fledgling. And then after that, they're a full-grown bird when they can fly and fend for themselves and all that. But arguably, the fledgling's like the most important stage. They haven't learned to fly yet. They haven't learned to fend for themselves yet. It's the part that needs the most nurturing and community and the right people around them to help them get to where they want to go. So I really like that in the book, Julia Cameron really makes the note that we, when we are trying to become something and when we are in those beginning stages of becoming, to treat ourselves and to see ourselves as the fledgling, not a bird, but an artist. The beginning stages of you fill in the blank. And last but not least, the last section, have the audacity to show up. And I'm going to read the quote again from The Artist's Way. And of course, the fledgling artist does not know. There is just this dream, this feeling, this urge, this desire. There is seldom any real proof, but the dream lives on. And in my notes, I said, of course not. How could you know? You've never done it before. A dream is a dream for a reason. It's not reality yet. But what separates a dream from reality is the audacity to take the steps into the unknown, to walk in the uncharted territory of your life with hope, with faith, with optimism, with perseverance, in spite of the fear, the uncertainty, the pushback, whatever it is, in spite of it. Have the audacity to move forward in spite of the opposition, despite the lack of comfort. Of course it's scary, of course it's uncomfortable. It's new, it's challenging, it's unknown. But there's magic in the unknown. Believe for yourself that there is an infinite amount of possibilities for something cool to happen in the unknown. Something that I've been writing in my journal recently for the past few weeks is getting your feet wet in the water of wonder. Like, imagine that. Like, to step out into the uncharted, into the unknown. Man, make puddles, splash puddles, get your feet wet in the water of unknown. Like, what an optimistic, adventurous mindset to have when you're faced with the unknown ahead of you. Choose to believe that there's treasure hidden in the unknown. But it's up to those who choose to courageously and boldly step into the unknown, again, with hope, with optimism, with faith, with perseverance, with audacity. There's power in a beginner's mindset. The beginner's mindset that we talked about allows you to have these traits. It allows you to be hopeful and faithful and optimistic and to persevere, to be audacious. So there's power in the beginner's mindset. There's power of giving up the need to control the outcome, the need to control every step of the journey. There's power in showing up, giving the best that you have each day that you show up, and trusting that what's meant to be will be, and that the results are ultimately in God's hands, the ultimate creator, the ultimate artist. Everything happens for a reason. Everything that's meant to be will be if you just keep going, if you just keep showing up. But this thought of keep going, this process of showing up, of getting back up after falling with hope, with faith, with optimism, with courage, audaciously facing the music and dancing your way through it. This is how the proof is made that this quote is talking about, that there is seldom any proof because you haven't done it yet. This process is how the proof is made. And this reminds me of my favorite quote by Alex Hormozy: "You don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are." Showing up. This gives you the evidence. Having the audacity to show up is building evidence that you are becoming who you want to be. Your habits, your repetitive actions are the proof of becoming. And there's this great thing about becoming, that momentum is the thing that comes with it as you keep going. I'll give you this example. You start going to the gym for long enough to see some growth, and you start to fall in love with it. Now going to the gym is easy. It's something you look forward to doing. But like I said, the hardest thing about the process of becoming is starting, the initial push. It's denying the habits and rhythms of your life that kept you stuck in the background. Face it, you want to become something new because you're tired of what you're currently in. But having the audacity to start, having the audacity to deny the self-doubt, denying the wounds that have been placed on you either by yourself or other people, denying the fear of failure, denying the fear of the unknown, whatever it is, deny the opposition and have the audacity to start. Because audacity is the substance to start and keep going. Audacity is the substance of becoming. It helps you face failure, the self-doubt, the wounds, the opposition that's in front of you, that's trying to keep you down, that's trying to keep you stuck in that cycle, in that positive but negative feedback loop. To become what we want to become, we must stare our fears in the eyes and have the audacity to move forward in spite of those fears. Here's a small example of just showing up. So I mentioned the morning pages. I want to be someone who is devoted to doing the morning pages every single day because I know it's going to help me with podcasting, with life, with who I want to be. If you can commit to one thing, you can commit to a whole bunch of other things. Be devoted to it, because how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So with the morning pages, sure, there are days I don't want to do it. There's days I wake up and, I could give myself a plethora of excuses to not do it. But I look at those excuses in the face and I'm like, no, because I told myself I'm going to be that person that gets up and does them every day because I know it's important. And when those excuses arise, all I have to do is tell myself, regardless of what I bring with the day, regardless of what the day brings me, all I have to do is show up to the table, show up to the page. It doesn't have to be a New York Times best-selling, journal. It can be bad and it's still quality because I showed up with what I have for the day. That is an example of the evidence that you're building to help you become who you want to become. That is the stack of undeniable proof that Alex Hormozy is talking about. It's the audacity to show up to the page. And it can be something simple like that, or it can be something big and grandiose. Who cares? Show up, do it, step by step, bird by bird. Even this podcast is an example of this concept. It's not easy stepping into the unknown. It's not easy stepping in front of a camera, putting on a microphone and talking to, who knows how many people. I could sit here and think about, what you're going to think of me, what you're going to think of, the stuff that I'm talking about, a plethora of what ifs. What good does that do? That's just giving yourself opportunity for the critic in your head to keep you down. I think it's so easy for us to get caught up in the intro of the story, or in the first conflict of our story. We get wrapped up in it. Maybe it's us even getting wrapped up in who we used to be or who we could have been. That's something that kind of pops into my head every once in a while. Like, what would have happened if this worked out, or if that happened a little differently, or blah, 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 blah. It's not who I could have been. It's who I can be. It's not who you could have been. It's who you still can be. Believe for yourself that the story is still being written, because it is. You still have life left to live. The story is still being written. So do your best to show up and make it a great ending. Make it a great story. Like I said, we get so wrapped up in the intro and how to start things. We're too concerned with how to get things started, or maybe the hands we were dealt. So what? Back to the Lord of the Rings. All right, stay with me here. I finally got to the juicy part of the book. Like I'm 100 something pages in, and I'm finally at the point where now it's hard to put the book down. But what about the first 100 pages? As I'm thinking about this, I realized that I think these successful writers do something fantastic in the mundane. And hear me out. I don't think they concern themselves with how they start. I don't think they concern themselves with the intro one bit. I don't think they try to wow anyone with the intro. I think they let the intro do its job, which is starting. It's getting the ball rolling, getting the story going. And then they let the story do the wowing. So for you, for me, pick a direction and just go. See what happens. See where it leads. Keep going, one foot after the next. Show up with what you got each day and let it happen. That is a mindset that I myself am choosing to work on adopting, and I hope you will too. But it's an everyday practice. But I think the more that I align myself with it, the more, I start to love where I'm at, the situation I'm in. I start to be a little more grateful for today, for who I am, for who I'm trying to be, even for who I've been. I start to see every day as another opportunity to get better. I start to be a little bit more optimistic. I'm more excited for the future. Instead of at the beginning of this podcast, I was talking about how there's such a great fear surrounding thinking about, the far off distance of the future. And the more I choose to adopt this mindset that we're talking about, the more I can lean into God, knowing that He is ultimately the one with the pen to finish the story. All I need to do is keep my feet moving, stay faithful, stay hopeful, stay optimistic, stay courageous and audacious. Everything's going to work out. But back to, it's not about who I could have been. There's so many things in my life that I feel either the enemy or that self-conscious, or maybe it's like comparison, that things from your life start to pop into your head about the things that you could have been. Maybe you got dealt a bad hand here. Maybe, this one hiccup happened that you couldn't quite get back from. Maybe it was a rough childhood. Maybe it was a bad school experience like middle school or high school or college. Maybe it was something in sports. Maybe it was an injury like me. Maybe your church hurt. Who knows? There's an infinite amount of possibilities of what could have happened. I can guarantee that each of us have had something happen where there's adversity here or something that makes us fall here. It looks different for everyone, or it may look similar for some people. But I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in this. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the starting point, in the intro. Even for me, the whole start of this thought process, the whole start of this episode was me working on getting myself out of that thinking, out of the what I could have been thinking. Luckily, as I was thinking this way, I caught myself like, well, let me put it on pause for a second. Because really what that is a repeating cycle of self-pity. And that's not fun. Not only is it not fun, it's not going to help you move forward. It's just going to keep you stuck in the same cycle. It's a positive feedback loop, like we're talking about. Like even though it's negative, it's negatively impacting, it's a positive feedback loop because it just keeps doing the same thing over and over. And your mind's going to start looking for things that feed into that positive feedback loop. And you're going to learn to be okay with feeling sorry for yourself. Maybe as you're watching this, you're realizing like, oh shoot, that's where I am right now. But being okay with feeling sorry for yourself is accepting your current situation. You begin to be okay with the hand that you were dealt, and you refuse to do anything about it, and you're stuck as like in this state of struggle. The book, The Artist's Way, calls it a shadow artist. Because we're all artists deep down, we're all creative deep down. God gave us that gift to co-create with the Creator. But if we don't act upon that, we're a shadow artist. We're always pushing down and suppressing these dreams that are inside of us. Like the quote saying, there's this dream, this feeling, this urge, this desire. A shadow artist keeps those down and doesn't act upon it, doesn't do anything to be able to reach those dreams and make it reality. But like I said, you're going to be okay with the hand that you were dealt. Instead of living for the story, instead of believing that who you can be is far greater than who you could have been. Who you could have been doesn't matter. It's out of your hands. It's in the past. Can't do anything about it. All you can do is move forward. And it's okay to mourn it for a second. But once you've done that mourning, move on. Can't do anything about it. Like, it's okay to feel bad for a second, but after that, it's like, all right, let's go. Because the second you start to sit in that sadness, the more you become okay with sitting in it. And you're not moving forward, you're not doing anything about it. If God is for you, then who can be against you? And if he's the one with the pen in his hand, just imagine all the possibilities of who you still can be. Just think about how amazing that story can be. There's still a lot of pages left. And I believe that if you're alive today, then God's not done with you yet. There's still pages left. So every day, show up to the page and just keep going, one foot after the next, with hope, with faith, with optimism, with courage, with audacity, with the audacity to look at the you that you could have been and say, you know what? Who I can be is far greater. The journey, if you choose for yourself, is to, with God, hand in hand, facing the music, dancing your way through life, through the obstacles, through the shortcomings, through the failures. Just keep on dancing, one after the next, bird by bird, and keep going.